Watching Roger Rabbit was one of the most fascinating and enjoyable experiences to receive on screen. The animation was superb. How the cartoon characters interacted with the live-action characters felt realistic. In the live-action animation motion picture, the film centers on private detective Eddie Valiant, investigating the murder of Marvin Acme, owner of Acme Corporations, a company responsible for many of the things related to cartoons, in a 1940s Hollywood where cartoon characters and humans regularly interact with each other. In the midst of the investigation, well-known toon star Roger Rabbit is purposefully set up as the culprit for Acme's murder. So as a result, Eddie and Roger set out to prove Roger's innocence in the face of the law. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a film from the late 80s, serves as one of the great examples of a film perfectly blending animation and live action. With several later cinematic works that have fused traditional cel animation with live action, the work usually doesn't come to par with the development of the 1988 film. So, how were the people behind this motion picture able to portray their interactions so cleanly? How did the film perfect and smoothly construct a picture that was able to fuse the two visual opposites that make up animation and live action? When we look at the lighting of various live-action animated films, it is often a big determining factor in how well it can mix the animation with the live-action setting. What audiences can notice about the film Cool World is how unconvincing the character Holly is in her own environment. This can be due to the animator's lack of detailed attention on how they could properly adapt her character in the real world. The darker illumination of the setting contrasts very sharply with her loud, very light, and colorful illumination. Thus, this gives an out-of-touch feeling many felt was one of the main problems with the film. When the animators were compositing the lighting for Roger Rabbit, which at the time was before the era of computer animation and digital compositing, they animated 3 lighting layers. These lighting layers were shadows, highlights, and tone maps. These layers were animated separately to give rise to a cartoon character's seemingly 3-dimensional look, as well as the illusion that the characters were affected by the lighting on the set. Let's look at one scene in which Roger and Bob Hoskins' character crash into a dark room. Eddie is holding Roger as they both violently bump into a lamp. As they bump into the lamp moves in a way that reveals the shadows touching the various objects in the room. The colors of these objects are then shown to slightly change at various times per second. Despite the fact that Roger was an animated, anthropomorphized rabbit, the animators did their best effort to shade every color on every cell of the rabbit, so the live-action light could bounce off him the same way it would on a real object. This is important to note, considering Roger was a toon, along with many other toons that didn't really follow any laws of physics that would usually apply to physical objects. A detail so seemingly minor, but essential because it had the audience remain invested in the world of Roger Rabbit, as well as making it a more believable and enjoyable experience. The actors' involvement on set are what also contributed to the enhancement of the audience's cinematic experience. When looking at the actors' interaction with the toons, they do so in such a way that seemingly convinces themselves, as well as the audience, that they are communicating with entities that don't even have an actual 3-dimensional realistic presence. Notice the eye contact between the actors and the animated characters. Many of the actors who interacted with the toons, such as Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd, or Joanna Cassidy, acted on set with various rubber mannequins of the characters. This was so it could teach actors where to look and what to interact with when dealing with imaginative, abstract characters. To make these mannequins more realistic, their movements were usually supported by robotic arms or strings being attached, similar to what would be a marionette. This not only helped actors with their scenes, but it also helped animators in figuring out where to animate over, as well as being a big assistance for the camera work. VistaVision cameras, which were installed with motion capture technology, were used to photograph the live-action scenes that would later be composited with the animation. The motion capture cameras, designed by cinematographer Dean Cundy, who previously worked on films like Back to the Future, Halloween, and The Thing, helped smoothly blend the animated and live-action shots. It also allowed animation supervisor Richard Williams afterward to go back in and animate over the footage with clear precision. This precision shows in Roger's reflection on the title floors, Daffy and Donald's reflection on the shiny wood of their pianos, the flashing sequins on Jessica's dress, or Toontown's reflection on Eddie's windshield. When constructing this film, all the key pieces such as the lighting, the acting and interactions, as well as the camera work all piece up essentially to make a motion picture that changed the game of animation, of cinema, of visual effects, and the whole process that goes into filmmaking. In the end, I think it can be looked upon as a work that destroyed the borders of how animation and live action were previously looked upon, and instead, producing a picture that captured and made a reality built on the colorful, abstract, overly exaggerated portion that are cartoons, and a more concrete, physical bounded, realism-based element that is the real world, all into one.